What's up, y'all? Today I'm going to be showing you guys my entire workflow of how I edit certain photos. So today I think I'm going to show you guys a black and white edit that I normally do, a kind of a Portra 160 type of look. I'm going to show you how I do some of my night photos, and I'm also going to show you guys how to do a bright, over the top, kind of saturated look, but still looks very fun and unique in my opinion. So let's get going. Okay, so I have my files open here. I'm gonna do 6 photos for today and show you guys the different edits that I do for certain photos. All right, let's do it. This one here is a photo in Central Park in New York of last year. So for this one, I'm kind of going to add a Portra kind of look to it. So let's just make sure this is straight. You know, this is very general edits. It's not super in-depth. I feel like this one's already a little bit warm, but maybe I'll warm it. Wait. So I normally just kind of like exaggerate it to see what, see how the photo is gonna turn out. Just add a hint of yellow to that. I think I'm gonna, again, there's no right or wrong way to edit. It's literally what you like. So exposure up a little bit. I think the contrast I'm gonna bring down a bit. Bring down the highlights to see some of that sky. I think the shadows. And then I like to normally bring down the blacks to give it a, I don't know, more sharper look, if you will. Textures, I think, you could add a little bit. You don't want to overdo it. Clarity, I usually like to bring down a bit. I think the vibrance and all that is pretty good. So I will just adjust the tone curve here, add some brightness in the midtones. Bring it down slightly. One thing I don't like, again, this is just my opinion, is when people like to overdo this look. This was popular like maybe 10 years ago. And again, I'm not judging. If this is your style, it is what it is. I'm pretty sure I edited like that too. But you kind of develop your own style. So I do like to add a little bit in the shadows, a tad bit. I think a tad bit goes a long way actually, and bring it down a little bit more on this side to give it a little more blacks. So I think that looks pretty decent. So here we have again, I didn't adjust too many things before, after. And for the hue of the blue, I will bring it, I don't want to overdo this like that, but I do want to give it a little bit of a more turquoise look in the sky. But I don't want to overdo it where it looks too fake. And then also in the luminance of the blue, I will bring it down a bit so you could see a bit more sky. See when you bring it, okay, see that looks a little cringe, I guess. So I'll bring it down a little bit just to see a little more. Let's put it at like, 27. That's pretty good right there. And then saturation of the greens. All right, this is where another trend. People love to do this. Nothing wrong with it. I'll desaturate it a little bit. Actually, let's see what it looks like when you saturate it a lot. Or put the saturation up. Yeah, let's just saturate it a little bit. Saturate the orange a tad bit because it's already very orange. This was in winter time, so I'll bring the luminance of the green up a little bit to give it a little bit of more pop to it. So in the shadows, for a portrait look, I do like to add a little bit of green, like a tad bit of like. And then in the highlights, I will add a little bit of a yellow-orange hue. I think that one is good. And then the midtones, I think this one is fine. Yeah, I'm not gonna mess with the midtones on this one. And then, you know, I don't wanna mess with any of this right now for this photo. Let's add a tad bit of grain. Let's do 10. Tiny bit of grain to this. And so for this, I'm pleased with it. I think it's a great photo. But again, you could always go back to this. I think I will brighten it a little bit more. Just a tad bit right there. And to me, this is done. Again, a very general edit. You don't want to overdo anything. So let's look at the before right here. And this is the new photo. So let's take a look at the final image. All right, let's move on to this Brooklyn Bridge view that I got. And I only took this photo, if y'all seen my last New York photo, because I saw the Empire State right there. So I thought, you know, obviously it's very tiny, but I thought it was a cool little picture there. And this one, because there's not too many colors that I want to necessarily bring out, I'm gonna make this a black and white photo. So again, let's straighten this out, very general. Okay, maybe not that much. I think that one's good right there. Yeah, crop it a bit. Okay, so I think that's straight or good enough. And then let's just hit the black and white. So to me, when Lightroom adds the black and white, usually it's too gray, right? This image is a little bit too gray in my opinion. So let's go ahead and adjust that. So exposure up a little bit. 4.5, I think that's good. And contrast. So again, we can always go back to these and adjust afterwards. So in my black and white photos, kind of like my night photos, I like to bring up the highlights or whites, and then bring down the black so it has a very contrasty look to it, but not too much. And I'll show you guys what I mean. So I'll bring down the saturation. I'll bring down the shadows here, and I'll crush the blacks. I'll crush it to, again, you could adjust it afterwards. And I'll bring up the whites a bit, but not overdo it like that where it kind of just looks blown out, because I do want a very contrasty look, but I don't want to go overboard. So I'll bring down the shadows too. Up the exposure a bit more. And then in a black and white photo, you could kind of up the texture, and the clarity I will bring down a little bit. So I think it's looking pretty good so far. Before, obviously, I didn't want to add any more color to this. And then this is the black and white. Again, not done yet. I'll add some brightness in the midtones. Bring this down a little bit. I don't want to overdo that. Here. So if you bring this down, it'll add a little bit more darkness to the shadows. And I'm not gonna add any color. Okay. And then this one, I don't think I'll add any grain. Just don't really feel like it. And this is a simple, all right, let's try crushing the black a tad bit more, 90, yeah. Bring the highlights down. Okay, so I think I'm pretty satisfied with this one. So this is normally how I would do a black and white. Again, it depends on the photo. I love black and white, especially recently. I've been enjoying it a lot, but it just really depends on the photo. If there's a lot of colors, I usually won't because I want to show the colors, but on a moody day like this, when I was in New York, Not too much color going on, so I did enjoy doing the black and white on this, and I think this is the look that I will go for. So let's take a look at the final image before and okay, so these last 4 images, it was a commission work, but for a local burger shop. And yeah, let me just show you kind of how I edited the final images for them. So this was the one that I wanted to talk about, where I wanted to give it like an over the top, saturated, very bright look, especially on a bright day like this. So what I did is, again, always straighten your photos, make sure it's all good. I think it's a little too vertical, so I'm gonna add a 4:5 crop to this, more on the sky side. And yeah, it sucks that this is here, but for this purpose, it's just an edit, so I'm not gonna Photoshop anything. It's just strictly colors and all that. So I'm gonna warm it up a little bit for this. I think exposure is good for now, but again, we can come back to that. I'll add a slight contrast, and I'll bring down the highlights since it's kind of bright. Bring down the shadows a little bit, and I'll crush the blacks just a tiny bit. I think that's good right there. Little bit of texture to this and down the clarity. I don't like overly sharp photos, just a preference of mine. And we'll add some brightness to the mid-tone a slight bit. So again, just kind of mess with these, you know, like, because it depends on the photo. I think that's good. Okay, so kind of like my last one, because the sky, I want to add, remember this is a little bit over the top edit, and that was the look I was going for. Again, I don't want to do this. That looks like a Wes Anderson movie. I want to bring down the hue of the blue a little bit. I think that one's good right there. And then I'll up the saturation a tiny bit. So this one, because of the yellows and the reds, I wanted to make it pop a bit. I want to saturate the reds a lot. And luckily there's no other red in this photo except on the building, so I will saturate the yellow also. So again, let's look at a before and after. Just subtle tweaks. We're not done yet. We'll bring down the luminance of the blue to make it the sky a little bit less bright. The luminance of the yellow to make it a little bit brighter than the red also. So, and then I'll add the vibrance to this so it kind of makes everything pop a little bit more. We're going for that over the top look, but keeping it still realistic looking in a way, if that makes sense. So I'll add some tiny bit of yellow hue to the highlights, just a little bit. And then in the shadows, I'll add a little bit of blue, just a bit. This blue right here. So again, let's look at the before. A little bit of a dull picture. Make it pop a little bit. And then for this one, I wanted to, so this was shot on a Sony with the Sigma lens, so I want to profile correction on this one, or the rest of these actually, the 4 of them. And then this one, I did want to add a good amount of grain on this, so I'm gonna go with a 40. So it's a bright look, but it still has that vintagey look because of the grain. And then I will brighten it just a little bit more, but I don't want to overexpose this too much, but I am going for a little bit of an overexposed look. I think that's good right there. So we have our final image before right here, and then so I'll actually go ahead and copy this edit for my next one. This will be the same edit, but I kind of only want to do this on the sign. I don't like all this going on right here. So again, I will crop this one, and this will be more of the sky. So let's go ahead and do that. Oh, and again, let's make sure it's straight. All right, so copy and paste that edit that we did in the previous one. Yeah, so wow, that looks good already. I don't really have to make too much adjustments on this one. I think the brightness is good there, actually. Wow. Okay, the shadows down a little bit to crush it a little. Yeah, for some reason, this actually doesn't look that straight to me. Let me see. I think that's more of a straight look. Yeah. All right. So I actually like this image a lot. So before, and again, we're going for that super over the top contrasted bright look. Yes, that's the name I'm gonna give it. And this is the final image. Okay, so these people wanted a night shot also, which, you know, I love shooting at night, so I was like, yeah, let's do it. And then I'm gonna crop this also. I'm gonna kind of put in the middle because there's not much going on the top or the bottom, and then straighten that out. So I'm kind of gonna do the same look with the yellows and the reds here, make it saturated. And I've said in my other videos, I love a bright highlight, dark shadow night photos. I love the contrast to those. So I'm gonna up the highlights, but I don't wanna do it too much because I do want to see the business, the name of the business. So I'm gonna up it just a tad. I'm gonna bring down the shadows, bring up the whites. Then I'm gonna crush the blacks a bit. That might be too dark. Let's do that. Bring up the exposure a little more. Okay. So mid-tones. All right, so what we have so far is a before, after, very subtle adjustments here. So in my night photos for this one, again, I'm gonna bring up the saturation of the yellow, bring up the saturation of the reds, and then the luminance. If I bring it up too much, it won't show. I'm actually gonna bring down the luminance a little bit. Maybe I'll bring up the luminance of the red since the sign is yellow. And then night photos, this is where the shadow, the color in the shadow shows a lot more. So I'm gonna add a blue. I don't wanna overdo that. That looks a little weird right there. I'm gonna add a little bit of blue. Let's do like 25 of a hint of blue. In my night photos, I do like to go for that pinkish look. So my highlights, I'll add a little bit of a magenta pinkish, but not too much. Let's do that there. And for these night photos, I did not add any grain. I think, I don't know, I think it makes it a little too underexposed if I add grain to them. And then I'll up the exposure a little bit more. I think the highlights are a little too bright. Okay, so this image here, I think it's done. So again, before and then after is the final image here. And then since I will go ahead and copy this edit, and then let's bring that to here. Well, let's crop this image. I don't like all of this going on here, but I do like that sign right there. So just gonna crop it like that. Make sure it's straight. And then I'll go ahead and paste my edit. So this is a decent photo. Highlights I'll bring down a little bit since it's a little bit brighter of a photo. I'll actually bring the vibrance up in this photo since there's a lot of neon colors going on, especially on the inside. And I kind of want to make it pop more. So saturation a little bit. Again, kind of over exaggerated, but I like this look. All right, so I think that's a complete photo there, before and after. So that was a very, let's put it, general way of how I edit certain photos. Obviously, edits are very subjective, and you know, there's people always ask me about my edits, and sometimes you get influenced by these looks on social media, and again, I'm guilty of it too, where it's very popular, so you think, oh, maybe I should edit that way so I get more validation and whatnot. And I used to be like that again, but at the end of the day, it's really simple, right? It's what do you like? What makes you think a photo looks good? And I think people need to start focusing on that rather than what is like a popular look. Try to make a photo timeless. Try to put your touch into it, and just kind of make it your own, you know? And there's nothing wrong with following the trends and whatnot. I'm not saying you shouldn't do that at all, but I'm saying at the end of the day, try to have your own style. Mess with different things, see how you like it. And because at the end of the day, editing is editing. There's no wrong or right way to do it. And just have fun with it. Try not to follow too many trends. Just make it your own. So again, thank you for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I did have a good amount of requests on my New York video to show some edits and whatnot, so I thought I'd do that. I actually had a lot of fun with this. I think I'm going to do a full night one on how I edit different night photos like fully, so stay tuned for that. And again, thank you for watching. I appreciate each and every one of you guys. Please continue to like the videos so it gets out there more, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.